All right. So if you weren't already tired from being parents, now you're tired from being parents, and it's right after lunch. So it's the best time. I have gotten really good with seeing people sleep while I'm talking. So go right ahead if you need a nap. We're recording it, so you can not listen to it later as well as now. Just take a nap. All the previous sessions, at least in my mind, have been a little bit more connected with younger kids. I actually texted Andre, maybe it was even yesterday. It was Thursday or Friday, and just asked about what ages most of you as parents would have. And because I had been thinking more so along the lines of some of the younger ages. And he texted back and said, potentially most of the parents are having kids in that age range of, just born to maybe 12. But obviously, some people have older kids. And ideally, your 3-year-old is going to be a teenager someday. If things work out okay, you're going to have teenagers if you don't yet already have teenagers. So for those of you who have some older kids and those who eventually will, I'd like to talk about in this session what I think might be the single greatest hurdle to parenting teenagers. And the single greatest obstacle or hurdle or problem with parenting teenagers, I believe, is thinking about them as teenagers. That's the worst, is considering them as adolescents, as teenagers, as our current society does. So adolescence, the idea of adolescence, has done more to set back Western civilization than Justin Bieber has, if you know who that is. He's tried hard to take us back. But this concept, this idea of adolescence is a bad one. It has not only prolonged individual and cultural immaturity, but it has actually defended immaturity from those who shouldn't be anymore, and actually even turned it into gold. And now we have the extension of adolescence into adultolescence, which is now our 25-year-olds are acting like 15-year-olds because when they were 15, nobody expected them to be growing and maturing. So, the myth of adolescence. It is a myth, a story, a way of thinking about the world that runs rampant today in the church. I think a lot of parents encourage it. Youth pastors spread it, and educators defend it. Young people themselves swallow it. And of course, it's beneficial for them to swallow it. They are some presuppositions of our generation about teenagers that has become a story. It is a way we talk about life. It's a way we talk about that stage of life, and it's been called adolescence. The popular idea of adolescence is not true. And what I mean by that is the way people typically think about that stage of life. Not only is it not true, it is actually painfully unscriptural. Adolescence as a fact. I'm not saying there's nothing to observe from when a person is 13 to 19 and on into their early 20s. I'm not saying that there's no special things about that time, but it is not a fact. It's been presented to us as a biological fact that you can expect teenagers to behave a certain way, and most of that relates to being irresponsible, and you can't hold them responsible because, they're teenagers. And that's wrong. Adolescence has achieved I think objective status as an obvious stage in human development in our culture, and it may be un-American and, depending on where you're at, even un-Christian to dispute it. How dare you say that there's no such thing as adolescence? Why are we going to eat pizza at youth group like this if there's no adolescence? Though this attitude towards teenagers is not surprising from the world, and as we keep going, I think it'll make sense why the world, the secular culture in particular, embraces adolescence, because unbelievers are always looking for another way to make an excuse. They're always looking for a way to not have to do what somebody says. So if we can give it a fancy name, it's a biological stage where you don't have to do what other people say. Well, of course, unbelievers are going to embrace that, but it is inexcusable that so many in the church have adopted the mindset as well. The dictionary defines adolescence as the state or process of growing up, the period of life from puberty to maturity, terminating legally at the age of majority. I acted like the person who gave this quote was Webster, because it was Webster's dictionary. And in and of itself, that part is fine. Categorizing that period of time, beginning at puberty, ending at adulthood, though that keeps getting pushed higher and higher, usually somewhere between 12 and 20, or during the teenage years, 13 to 19. There are people who say now that it's 25 and 28, because it just keeps, like, for real. If you haven't expected me to do anything when I'm 16, why start expecting me to do anything later either? So just because you can get your driver's license and then you can vote and then you can buy alcohol, like, these are some of the ways that our culture tries to acknowledge growing up into maturity. But generally speaking, if I can keep excusing my immaturity, if I can keep excusing my disobedience, I'm going to do that. Obviously, growing up is a process. I already said God loves growth. Not saying that you can skip from 12 to 20. Clearly, a lot of things change, and puberty is a big deal. I went through puberty one time. I've seen other people do it. I've got a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old. My son, who is 13, he grew half an inch in 2 weeks recently, and like, his underwear doesn't fit. We just bought him new pairs in December at Christmas time, because that's what you get a 13-year-old for Christmas. Grow up and enjoy your undergarments. Merry Christmas. And those don't fit anymore. So, like, your body changes. There are things that are happening. But the kind of thing I'm talking about with adolescence is a mindset, a way of viewing it, or a story that has kind of a fixed mental attitude that determines or predetermines your responses to other conditions or behaviors. So that's a technical definition for mindset, but a mindset that predisposes you to react a particular way when something happens. And it is a mindset that a lot of parents have, and like I said, educators and even pastors, youth pastors, as well as teenagers themselves. Parents assume that their teenager is going to have a certain mindset because they're a teenager. Or teenagers assume that they're going to experience certain things because they're in this adolescent time. So what are some of the characteristics of this mindset or of this myth? He doesn't organize it in bullet point form. So I'm going to give you my own summary and categorization of some of the things, but if you're interested in further understanding of adolescence as an idea, I think this is a fun book. This guy is not a Christian, and he's irritated by a lot of the immaturity of our society. Great book. It's probably at least 20 years old by now, still applicable, because you're not going to find a lot of verses in the Bible about adolescence. There's something to that, because it's a category we're largely making up. So I recommend that book if you want more. Maybe you'll super hate what I say in this session. You're like, I'm going to go see why he misread that book. That's fine. You can send me an email. I don't reply to email. I am very good at it, at not replying. So feel free. No, but for real, I'm benefited by criticism and feedback. I think it is very helpful. And I read it at a time when I was a youth pastor. So day in, day out, talking with, spending time with young people, junior high to high school age. And I found the descriptions in this book to be consistent with a mindset, even of teenagers and their parents in church. So some mindsets, like a teenager is incompetent. From the book, the concept of teenager rests in turn on the idea of the adolescent as a not quite competent person, beset by stress and hormones. And that then goes along with a teenager then is irresponsible, because if they are not capable of behaving in a certain way, then of course they're not going to behave that way. And if they're not capable of responding in a particular way, then you can't hold them responsible for how they're behaving. And this period of irresponsibility goes even more on the aggressive side, where we encourage them to see it as a time of experimentation and prolonged preparation. It is a time to defer responsibility. It regularly comes, and there is a time to say this or give this counsel to our kids. There are other times probably to not to. Something like, well, you're going to work for the rest of your life. You know, a young person gets a job, so they're still in school, let's say, and they've got household chores and responsibilities at home, and maybe they're involved in different things at church, and then maybe they get a part-time job, and they want to do some more work. They want to get in more hours because maybe they want to buy a car, or you're having them pay for their insurance or whatever. So they're talking about wanting to do more work, and a parent says, well, you're going to have the rest of your life to work. Well, I mean, that's true, but doesn't it really depend on why they want to work more? And if the problem is the why they want to work more because they hate their other responsibilities and they like their work responsibilities better, or because mom and dad aren't watching over them like a hawk when they're down at the Burger King flipping burgers or whatever it is, if that's why they like it, then we should talk about what they're thinking, not just say, well, you have the rest of your time to work. That's a cop-out of parents to say that and not actually deal with the issue. In addition to the fact it misses the point that God made us to work, and school is work, and chores at home are work, but so is also the things outside of the home, if you have those possibilities. So expecting them to put off responsibility longer means that they're not going to take on responsibility until later. And the more we think, you know, we just want them to be kids, we just want them to have fun, we just want them to YOLO, you only live once, we don't want them to have FOMO, fear of missing out. I get, those were hashtags that were popular with the young people like 2 years ago. It's so old. Nobody says YOLO FOMO, but I'm old, so that's how it goes. you're getting old person jokes because I'm an old person. An old person trying to stay young, like a teenager. Look, when I started this morning, my gray was not beard. So that's how much I've aged just in talking about parenting. The idea that says teenagers get to be irresponsible and that you can't even really hold them responsible is part of this mindset. Again, from the book, quote, inevitably, the teenager is a disappointment whose combination of adult capacities and juvenile irresponsibility sows personal heartbreak and social chaos. So we encourage them to play around with relationships. We encourage them to play around with a variety of things that they should take more seriously. A third piece of this mindset is that a teenager is in a perpetual identity crisis. And, well, I can't remember what the name of the show is. There was a Netflix show, I think it came out within the last year or so. It was a show for young people, or at least about a young person who committed suicide. Does that sound familiar to anybody? 13 Reasons Why? Yeah. And it was about suicide. And a bunch of people flipped out because, here it is glorifying, and it's going to cause a bunch of other young people to watch it and be like, okay, this is the answer. Well, I'm not denying that young people commit suicide or that young people need to continue to be trained in who they are. But the idea that you must go through this stage where you have no idea who you are is baloney. For 3-year-olds and 13-year-olds and 43-year-olds, midlife crisis, and 73-year-olds, at 73, like, you're really old. So there you go. You know your identity. You're really old. No, I mean, like, we have things that we get to know about us because they're not circumstantially identifiable. They are defined for us by God. I am a man. I know that because God gave 2 different categories, and my plumbing is different than the other people. So, hey, look at that. I don't have to wonder, which one do I want to be? Or maybe I want to be a different one today than I was yesterday. Like, I get that our educational system in Washington State, the public schools are working really hard to increase this sense of not knowing who they are, in the name of being sensitive to all of these struggles that they have. They don't know who they are, so let's have a long stretch of weeks in our curriculum about how it's hard to know who you are. And I mean, when parents in an unbelieving situation are not loving their kids, when the world is specifically trying to get the kids to, and I think this is a better way that we should be talking about it. It's not that the world is actually really trying to confuse them about their identity. It's that the world is trying to tell them that their identity is being confused. Did that make sense? The world is still giving them an identity. The world just says, your identity is the kind of not knowing who you are, so that you can never change what we're telling you. You'll never have any reason to rise up and argue against what we're saying because you're confused. That's who you are. You are the confused group. And that's just a different kind of identity. It's not whether or not they have one, it's which one. The myth is that they're in this perpetual identity crisis and they can't do anything different. Next is that a teenager is just a problem waiting to happen, or a problem that has already happened with more problems waiting to happen. It encourages adults to see teenagers and young people themselves not as individuals, but as trouble. And well-meaning Christian parents talk like this. Oh, well, wait till they're a teenager. Then sometimes you should say back, okay, what happens then? I don't know. Because the other person is saying that like, you're going to hate it. It's going to be hell on earth. And that's just how it is, because that's what teenagers do. They make your life hell on earth. Well, who says? It's this myth, a story that we keep telling and seeing, that a teenager is going to be rebellious. That goes along with a problem waiting to happen. The story goes is that rebellion is not a question of if, but just when. That like the whole story of being a teenager is like fighting the power, fighting the man. Just identifying yourself by who you're against, by making your own way, by doing it according to your own desire so that you can be you. And so don't expect accountability. Don't expect communication from them. If you ask how their day went when they come home from school or from work or wherever it is, and they go, you should be happy, because at least they didn't punch you or cuss you out or whatever it is. Well, we should have higher expectations than that. And then last, and this is probably the worst one, is that a teenager is at the mercy. They can do nothing about their raging hormones. So in the book, he puts it this way: there's a bias against teenagers, quote, expressed in the two-word term that serves as the vernacular explanation for almost everything teenagers do: raging hormones. Well, of course, they're going to look at you like that with the dead eyes because of raging hormones. Of course, they're going to be snippy when you ask them to clean up their room or do the dishes because hormones, Mom. And then any mom who like is wise might then try the next time during a particular season of her month, might show her daughter what that looks like when you just let your raging hormones have control over all the things you do and say and how you treat other people. How do you like that? Guys have different sorts of raging hormones, but also best case scenario for guys, best case, is that they are faithful, they have fidelity, they are a one-woman man who is not lusting after every woman or every pornographic image that is always around. So we actually do expect that our men get themselves under control and that our ladies get themselves responsible and self-disciplined. And so saying, because you have hormones or because these hormones are different or new to you, therefore you don't have to pay attention to the other responsibilities, is actually an excuse to not have to obey, to not have to be in fellowship. The greatest danger of all these descriptions is that they're presented to us as timeless, as universal, and as inevitable. This is how it's always been, this is how it is everywhere, and this is how it's always going to be. And it's a story. It is the way that Hollywood continues to portray teenagers. It's what a lot of popular music is doing. But like movies and TV shows and music and the videos that go along with them and all of that kind of entertainment culture, like those things are not just responding to what they see, they are trying to teach. They're trying to pass on a way of thinking about things. They're not just reflecting the way people already think about things. One of the most is not related to adolescence, but one of the most, I think, obvious and successful examples of this is with homosexuality. So homosexuality in the arts, especially in the entertainment, movies, and TV shows, did not start out by showing homosexual behavior and kissing and whatever else it is. I know what else it is. I'm speaking rated PG. They actually started out by making it something funny to just get us to think it was cute and laugh at it. So it must have been the 90s when, like, the show Will and Grace came out. Have you heard that show? Do you guys know that show? Well, it's a show about some gay people in New York City just having a fabulous time and laughing at all the things. And that was teaching a lesson that says it's not a big deal. It's not a problem. You just see how much these people enjoy what they have as well. So we can all get along. It's okay. So those industries are doing teaching. They're not just responding or reflecting what is around them. When it comes to the raging hormones, and it does seem like the hormones, especially for ladies, either related to their cycle or to menopause or to low thyroid or, those kinds of things, that it seems like more often than not, ladies go to the doctor about than guys do. Guys are just like, I need some more coffee. Women are like, I think I need to go to the doctor. I'm not actually trying to make fun of needing to go to the doctor. I agree that those are big issues. But regularly, the ladies that are in my house or that I pastor are discouraged and frustrated because the doctors don't have solid answers. They do a bunch of tests and there's not anything obvious. The results come back within the normal range and they're like, but it still doesn't explain why I don't feel good or why I have these issues. And even with our great medical advances, part of it is because endocrinology, which is the study of hormones, endocrinology is a field where fundamental discoveries are made regularly. There's not yet any biochemical explanation for surliness, self-absorption, or rebelliousness. It can explain why you start sweating a whole bunch, or you have hot flashes, but it can't explain why you can't wash the dishes when it's your night. There's no doctor who writes a note to the 17-year-old, can't wash dishes, hormones. But sadly, the facts seem to have far less power than what people believe. They accept this mindset. The birth of adolescence, though, is fairly new. This is the first book that was published with the word adolescence in the title. And I get that English itself as a language is only 500-ish years old. But if you can see down at the bottom, the copyright for this, it's 1905. It is the first major book talking about this as a thing. So the first time someone delineated or marked out adolescence as its own stage of development was 1904. The term teenager was first published in the magazine Popular Science, but not until 1941. Which I do kind of feel like, you mean nobody put together that you could call someone who was 13 a teenager? But whatever. We're slow. We're still maturing. But so we're talking just a little over 100 years in history of people even talking with these terms, of trying to tell this story. It was G. Stanley Hall, his book, Adolescence, Its Relations to Physiology, Anthropology, Sociology, Sex, Crime, Religion, and Education. He apparently was not trying to get a lot of people to buy his book based on the title, but that's fine. The thesis of the book was that this stage of adolescence is a stage that everyone has to go through. Between 13 and 18 was his limited window at that time, and described it as being in a constant state of turmoil. Life is stormy for every teenager, a constant series of crises and violent reactions. This was before they even had texting and emoji and Snapchat. I've never done a snap. I had to look up what it's actually called. Like, is it a message on Snapchat? No, it's a snap. I didn't know that. Like, they didn't even have snaps on Snapchat. They didn't have selfies and sexting and Facebook or whatever they're using these days. Who even knows? It changes every day. What they use to communicate their drama. This constant state of turmoil. The reason, though, that the guy wrote the book and made the observation was because he believed in evolution. And the backbone of his argument was that the evolutionary process requires this stage of struggle to become something better and stronger on the other side. And we're trying to get to adults, so these teenagers go through it. The guy who wrote The Myth of Adolescence, or The Rise and Fall of the American Teenager, he summarizes Hall's argument. The development of the individual mirrors the evolution of the species as a whole. Hall saw the adolescent as a savage, prone to violent, disruptive, impulsive behavior. The good news was that just as humanity evolved to a higher form, adolescents will grow out of their savagery. This optimism, or the optimism inherent in the notion that adolescence is something you'll eventually grow out of, does survive. At least we hope, and this is where you hear comments like, just lock them in their room until they're 20. Right? If time dealt with rebellion, then Jesus didn't need to die. Just wait longer until your rebellion got over or paid for. If just being bigger made you more able to obey, then all of the tall people, why are they not more perfect? Or why are we not encouraging people to all lift weights? If bigger, more physically mature makes you able to obey, then let's get everybody bigger physically. If time going by fixes all of our problems, then what do we need Christianity for? But of course, evolution is a false story, which then got applied to this idea of what we expect of teenagers. So, for real, Thomas Edison didn't get his patent for the light bulb until 1889. I give that as a comparison to say, and light is good. Like artificial light is okay. Just because it's not super old doesn't necessarily mean that it is bad. New and helpful discoveries are regularly made, but it's also important to recognize that adolescence is just not a timeless category. It is a modern invention, and in this case, being new is not in its favor. So, teenagers are not aliens. They're not from another planet. They're from you. Or your teenagers are from you. Maybe other teenagers are from other planets, but the ones in your house that you have primary responsibility for, they are just growing up and taking on your shape. The biggest problem with adolescence is not that it's new, but that it ignores what God says about humanity, what God says about sin, what God says about salvation. When we diagnose people with the disease of adolescence, what is the cure? Well, again, it's either getting bigger or getting older. And send them off to boarding school until they come back both. If we diagnose the problem as they're just a 14-year-old, well, then we are going to likely be denying the depravity of man, and the depravity of man causing sin, which is the cause of human problems and disruption and lack of fellowship. To say that the problem is that they're a teenager is a way to make excuses for their sin, to explain it away, and to make teenagers victims. The rise of teenagerism, where they cannot be held responsible because of where they are at in life, has led to an abundance, yea, verily, a cornucopia of people today who can't be held responsible because of their ailment. So teenagers, at least you could check their driver's license to see if it applied. But today, people just make up whatever they want as the thing that means that they can't obey, the thing that makes them a victim. It is one of the reasons why when people have surgery, when people have cosmetic surgery, they're trying to look younger. Nobody has cosmetic surgery to try to look older. The thing about youth is not just its physical appearance, is that it brings with it this kind of stage of thinking where you can do whatever you want. Who cares about the consequences? When a teenager lives for the glory of himself rather than the glory of God, there's no excuse. When parents explain away disobedient behavior as inevitable, they're half right. They're half right because their kids are sinners. But it's because of sin that needs to be repented of, not something that can't be dealt with. When teenagers are depressed, unthankful, full of anxiety, prone to laziness, it's because they're not worshiping God. I'm not saying that they've got to be then perfectly industrious and perfectly happy. There are hard things that happen in life. We, as older people, are not perfectly happy and perfectly industrious. We are growing in our abilities too. But we're trying to help them grow up into maturity, which is a giving of themselves rather than a taking or defending themselves. This is the reason why there are cliques of mean girls. Go to any place where there's more than 2 girls in junior high and high school. You're going to see that some of them are mean to the other ones. Why is that? They're teenage girls. No, that's not it. James says, what causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? I get that maybe you don't read that verse initially thinking of teeny bopper, 13-year-old girls who don't know how to apply their makeup. I get that maybe that's not what immediately comes to mind. What causes quarrels and what causes fights among you? You're thinking of like Roman soldiers maybe in some significant battle armor on a horse with a javelin. Why are they fighting over the land? Well, the 13-year-old pack of girls, they're just fighting over the attention. They're fighting over something. Is it not this, that your passions are at war within you? So you desire and do not have, so you murder. You covet and cannot obtain, so you fight and quarrel. The reason why teenagers don't get along with each other is because they're sinners. The reason that they disobey their parents and give a kind of attitude to authorities is explained in Romans 1. This is kind of a brutal list. Romans 1, 29 through 30. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliciousness. They are gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents. Like, how does that fit in that list? Of they're murderers, they're inventors of evil, they're disobedient to parents. Well, because this is what happens when people sin. Theology, the Bible teaches us that teens are not aliens. They are image bearers of God just at an earlier stage in the process. Babies are at a stage God likes, toddlers, young kids, older kids moving into adulthood. I'm not arguing that we can't identify. There's this time when significant changes and like my son's not here, so I'm going to talk about him. If he turns just a little bit to the side and the light is shining in through the window, you can kind of see this little blonde mustache up on his top lip. And we tell him how cute that is. He really likes hearing how cute it is. A while ago, he came out, and he's not a guy with a lot of body odor, but for 2 or 3 years, he would hope we were doing something special, and it usually was for Sundays that he got to wear deodorant. And so he'd come out on Tuesday morning and be like, "Mom, Dad, can I wear some deodorant today?" And be like, "No." But now he's getting to the point where it's not a bad idea every day, right? So things happen. He came out sometime within the last year, very, 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 very excited to show us the 2 little whisker hairs in his armpit. So that's awesome. It's not a denial that things are happening and his body is growing. But with great armpit hair comes great responsibility. I think that was what it said in Spider-Man. With increasing abilities comes more responsibility, not, "Oh, you're in the 3 armpit hair stage. No wonder you can't hear anything I'm saying." The hair is growing in your ears and clogging up the ability to get to your brain. They are image bearers. Yes, they're going to need help continuing to see what that's like and what that means, but that's part of what we're there for. It's part of what we're doing. So we're trying to, with our teenagers, we're trying to give them more responsibility, not less. It's a time for a kind of experimentation, but not like with sin. Try different things to see what you like that are lawful, that are righteous, but not just whatever the world says will make you happy. They are also disciples of Christ. And maybe one of the reasons that we have trouble parenting is because we don't understand discipling, where I get that there is a stage of a young person's life where they start pressing on some of your reasons. They start pressing for reasons okay, well, why? I want to do this. Parent says no. Well, why? Or our family does this, another family doesn't do this. Well, why? An important thing is to recognize there's a difference between somebody who is asking questions and somebody who is questioning. Someone who is questioning to try to get out of it rather than genuinely wanting to understand. I would say with our young people, we want to encourage questions, and we want to answer questions, and we want to model the openness to their questions that we would like them to show us when we ask them questions. We want to do the question asking. We want them to tell us all the things that they're thinking, and yet when they ask us a question, we're like, "Well, I'm too busy." Or they ask us a question and we're like, "But I already told you the answer." Or they ask us a question and we have some other excuse for why we're too tired or we're too busy and we don't want to explain it. That is more where they're learning how to not answer questions than it is because of some particular hormone that they could get a shot for. There isn't a shot like that. So ask them questions, allow time for them to answer. So it is easier to start this process when they're younger than waiting until they're 17 and being like, "You know what? I've never asked them if they like a boy." Because probably if they're around other people, they're at least hearing some other people have those kinds of discussions. I am really thankful for my wife when it comes to this, because even as intentional, she's not speaking at a parenting seminar. She wasn't a youth pastor. But I should say first, people already tell me a lot of problems that they have, so I don't usually need to go asking people to find out more problems. It's kind of how it goes. People seek me out to tell me things that are wrong for them, so I tend to not get excited about digging, like when I can tell maybe there's something underneath the surface, but I don't really want to know about it. Because then that's going to probably mean it means the conversation is not going to be quick, and it means I probably even have more things that I'm going to need to deal with. My wife is super great. She just doesn't have the same issues, and she is just a fantastic example of talking about all kinds of things regularly in front of them and with them. There's very little that we will not talk to our older kids about. Obviously, as they're growing up, they become ready to hear more things. But probably in the current world we live in, the world is continuing to push down those topics to younger and younger ages. So we're the ones who should be directing our children in the way that they should go. We're the ones who should be helping them with building the categories for where these things go. So, you can only watch so much TV without seeing a commercial for something dumb. I kind of feel like, maybe this is not true, I kind of feel like they're even starting to market like laundry detergent with gay people. We're just watching HGTV. We just want to know how to put the plant in the ground. And now we're told that gay people are buying and eating Tide Pods. And, my kids are watching that. And we're not watching Game of Thrones with them. And, well, this is why the rape of this person in its historical context, I don't watch Game of Thrones. I wouldn't watch Game of Thrones. But there are too many other things that our culture is trying to teach our kids, and the best that we do at controlling it, it still gets in. So talk about it. Explain to them how to think about it. The world is not being quiet. They're not shy about giving our kids a way to think. So we are going to have to talk about it. And lots of you, I'm guessing, didn't get that from your parents. For whatever reason. I'm not dissing anybody's parents, not spitting on your parents. I'm just saying a lot of people, they don't want to know what's bad, and they don't want to have to talk about it and work through it. And that's why our kids end up confused. Less because of hormones, more because no one has actually talked to them about it. So as disciples of Christ, teach them how to obey in thinking about a laundry detergent commercial where they use gay people to sell it. Footnote, it doesn't require turning the TV off for an hour-long sermon. So, that used to be my tendency, especially when I had young kids who were old enough to be captive audiences to my devotions. Because I was a pastor, I've been to seminary, I do the exegesis. So it's kind of like we'd sit down for dinner and I'd have this 20-minute devotional for my 3-year-old from Ezekiel about the wheels within the wheels. And it's just amazing. And the food is getting cold while she's watching it and not even listening to me. And I would be offended. Don't you know how hard I worked on this? Whatever. Like, right? I at that point am less mature than she is as the 3-year-old who's like, the food is hot. I think we should eat it. That's the mature thing to do. The right way. So deal with the commercial, but deal with it like, I know, that is crazy. Like, everybody needs to do their laundry, but this is a ridiculous piece of propaganda, and we're going to just keep seeing it. You know, and then more. Like, God doesn't say that 2 men should love each other as 2 husbands. That's not how he made it. That he made it so that a husband and a wife would be male and female together. And then, you know, if they have more questions, great. But we don't need to freak out. We do need to help them learn how to deal with it. They're not only disciples, they are gifts to us. We are stewards of them. This is Psalm 127. Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord, the fruit of the womb a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior are the children of one's youth. Blessed is the man who fills his quiver with them. He shall not be put to shame when he speaks with his enemies in the gate. I am just now getting to the stage in my own life as a father where my kids are ready to do some cultural arguing, but not with me. Or I'm sorry, not against me, but with me. So this idea of standing in the gates, your kids are standing in the gates with you, is standing in the gates representing what is true, representing the family, representing what is right. So they become fellow warriors. That's the idea of them being the arrows. So we are not raising our kids to shield them. We're raising them to be weapons. They are gifts. And as gifts, we receive them as that and realize why God has given them to us as gifts to sharpen them and prepare them for the work that He has. And then last is teenagers are imitators of us. So this is humbling. I don't know that the super excitement over 3 armpit hair whiskers reflects me. Maybe there's some part of my soul that is like that. I don't know about that part per se. But generally speaking, our teenagers act the way that they do, not because they're teenagers, but because they've been watching us and learning how to act. That's generally why they behave the way that they do. So that's for good and for bad. They usually have a mix, right, of the spouse's strengths and weaknesses, a blend of personalities and preferences, and then some uniquenesses of their own. It's not just genetic similarities, since behavior can also be learned by imitation. So your kids are learning how to handle things that they don't like by watching you handle things that you don't like. So when parents make excuses, or when parents hide or keep their sin unconfessed, let alone even defend why they sinned, or demand to be served, then those kinds of things become the house rules regardless of what you put on your fridge. You're saying that the house rules are, I'll do it my way. It just so happens that in the meantime, you can withhold their allowance, but it's not the lesson that you're trying to teach. So when it comes to our teenagers, we should raise our expectations, and we should start by raising our expectations for ourselves as well as for them. We're showing them how it's done. So yes, teenagers are still figuring out who they are. Help them do that. Tell them who they are in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Shape their desires by telling and showing them what is desirable. I mean, this is the purpose of every pastor. This is the purpose, I think, of every parent, is to keep talking about Christ and keep worshiping Him and keep loving Him, teaching and showing, modeling how it's done, and warning, giving examples of turning away from the wrong path until we all are mature or complete in Christ. That's what we want for them. We've got to be pursuing that, and teenagers are not an exception. I'm not denying that growth is a process. God still loves growth. There's growth that happens between 12 and 20. Serious, physical, even emotional, sometimes spiritual changes that are big and small. But don't let your friends make excuses for their teen because of being a teenager, and don't you make excuses for them because they're a teen, and don't let them make excuses for themselves because they're a teen. Do they have to be perfect? No. Should they be growing? Absolutely. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. Have you heard that phrase before? Rome wasn't built in a day, but also it didn't happen that they went to bed one night and got up 200 years later and it was magically built. It wasn't built in a day, meaning that it's a process, but there's work that has to be done day by day. So I don't deny that a lot of teenagers act like teenagers. What I deny is that this is how it's always been and how it must be. I think that we have created this context and it continues to have a selling point. People keep buying it because people keep liking the excuse making it provides. Ideas do have consequences, and there are consequences of believing those lies of adolescence. The good news is that Jesus came into the world to die for sinners, and that's actually a way better hope than turning 21. That our hope of life and joy is in the gospel rather than in, I now have lived this many years on the planet. Now I'm ready. So Jesus is the Savior. He promises that when we confess our sin, He forgives us and cleanses us from our sin. So the earth isn't flat, and adolescence is not an inescapable, like tractor beam. You're stuck and can't get out until you outgrow it. And we ought to be the people who don't believe those lies. All right, we got one more session to go after this. The boss says 5 minutes, so I'll call you back about 2:30.